If you think he's over you, you're wrong, and here's why. A man doesn't just wake up one day and forget the impact of someone who changed his life. See, men are wired differently. We don't always process emotion when it happens. We store it. We delay it. We distract ourselves from it. So when you walked away, when you stopped calling, when you stopped explaining, it didn't hit him right then. It hit him later. It hit him in silence. It hit him when the noise died down and there was nothing left but his thoughts. When a man goes silent, people assume he's healed, that he's moved on, that his heart has already closed the chapter. But silence doesn't mean peace, and it doesn't mean closure. Silence is often the loudest sign that something is still unsettled inside him. Men don't process loss the same way. When something ends, especially something meaningful, a man's first reaction is not to feel, it's to function. He keeps going. He stays busy. He fills his time with distractions because facing emotion feels like weakness to him. So he avoids it. He postpones it. He convinces himself that if he doesn't talk about it, it doesn't exist. But emotion doesn't disappear just because it's ignored. It waits. It sits quietly until the noise fades. And that's when it shows up, late at night, in quiet rooms, in moments where there's nothing left to distract him. That's when the memories replay. That's when the weight of absence becomes real. Silence is not him being done. Silence is him finally being alone with what he lost. A man can walk away without fully understanding what he's walking away from. At first, he feels relief. No arguments, no expectations, no accountability, but relief is temporary. Once routine settles in, once the excitement of freedom wears off, reality steps in. And reality asks questions he can't ignore. Who really understood him? Who showed up consistently? Who saw him beyond his potential and loved him anyway? Those questions don't come immediately. They come after silence. Men process backwards. They let go first and feel later. That's why his silence is dangerous for him, not for you, because in that quiet space, he begins to recognize patterns. He starts noticing what's missing. Not just your presence, but the way you made things feel grounded, the way you brought order to chaos, the way you created emotional safety without him realizing it at the time. Silence forces reflection, and reflection brings regret, not always enough to change, but enough to haunt. He may never say it out loud. He may never admit it to you or anyone else. But internally, he starts replaying moments, conversations, chances he didn't take seriously. Silence gives those thoughts room to grow. So when you think he's over you because he's quiet, understand this. Silence isn't strength. It's processing. It's delayed emotion catching up. It's the mind finally slowing down enough to feel what the heart was protecting itself from. And once that process starts, it doesn't stop easily. A man's ego is the strongest mask he owns. It convinces the world that he's unbothered, unaffected, untouched by what ended. Ego tells him to stand tall, stay quiet, and never let anyone see the crack in his armor. So when you look at him and think he's fine, what you're really seeing is performance. Ego doesn't mean absence of feeling. It means fear of exposure, fear of admitting that something mattered more than he was ready to acknowledge. Men are taught early that vulnerability costs them respect. So instead of saying, "I miss her," ego says, "I'm good." Instead of admitting regret, ego says, "It is what it is." Ego pushes him to move forward without looking back, not because he's healed, but because he doesn't want to confront the truth that he lost something valuable. Ego tells him that acknowledging pain would mean admitting failure, and that's something he avoids at all costs. But here's what ego can't do. It can't erase memory. It can't shut off emotional attachment. It can't undo the impact of someone who mattered. Ego can delay pain, but it cannot destroy it. So the pain goes underground. It hides behind confidence. It hides behind laughter. It hides behind new routines and new distractions. But it's still there, quietly influencing his thoughts and reactions. A man's ego convinces him that moving on quickly proves strength. But real strength would require reflection, and reflection threatens ego. Reflection forces him to ask hard questions about his role, his effort, his consistency. Ego doesn't want accountability. It wants control, so he avoids the emotional work and convinces himself that silence equals victory. Meanwhile, the unresolved emotions keep piling up. That's why you'll see contradictions. He'll act indifferent, but still check in subtle ways. He'll claim he doesn't care, but react when he hears your name. He'll pretend you're irrelevant, yet feel unsettled when he sees you thriving. Ego makes him deny what his heart already knows, and denial takes energy. That's why he seems distant, guarded, and emotionally unavailable. He's fighting an internal battle you can't see. Ego also keeps him from reaching out, not because he doesn't want to, but because he's afraid of rejection and exposure. Admitting pain would mean admitting that you had power, that you mattered, that losing you affected him. Ego won't allow that confession. So instead, he stays quiet and hopes time will do the work he refuses to do himself. But time doesn't heal what ego protects. It only magnifies it, because the longer he avoids the truth, the heavier it becomes. And one day, ego gets tired. It cracks in moments of loneliness, regret, and comparison. That's when the pain he hid finally shows itself, even if no one else ever hears him admit it. Men detach slower than they pretend, and that's a truth most people misunderstand. What you see on the surface is rarely what's happening internally. A man can say he's done, act like he's moved on, and still be emotionally tied to what he lost. That's because men don't usually disconnect at the moment things end. They disconnect in stages, and sometimes they never fully do. Pretending is easier than processing, and appearance is easier than honesty. When a relationship ends, a man often convinces himself that cutting communication equals closure. He believes distance will erase feeling, so he pulls back, goes quiet, keeps himself busy, and assumes time will handle the rest. But emotional attachment doesn't operate on a schedule. It's built through shared moments, routines, and emotional investment. Those things don't dissolve just because a decision was made. They linger in habits, in memory, in expectation. Men attach through experience more than expression. While women often bond through communication, men bond through presence and repetition. So when that presence disappears, the absence doesn't fully register at first. It shows up later when routine is broken, when there's no one to share small victories with, when familiar comfort is gone. That's when detachment slows down because the mind finally notices what the heart was already holding on to. A man may start dating again quickly, not because he's healed, but because he's avoiding stillness. New attention gives him a temporary sense of control. It creates the illusion that he's replaced what he lost. But comparison always follows, and comparison brings clarity. He starts noticing what feels different, what's missing, what can't be recreated. That's when he realizes he hasn't detached the way he claimed. Detachment for men often happens mentally before it happens emotionally. He tells himself the story that it's over, that it's for the best, that he's better off. But emotionally, he's still adjusting. And that adjustment can take longer than he expected. That's why certain triggers still affect him. A song, a place, a memory. Detachment doesn't erase reaction. If something still stirs him, it means something is unresolved. Pretending to be over it requires effort, and effort reveals attachment. If he truly didn't care, there would be no need to prove it, no need to act unbothered, no need to rush into something new. The performance itself is evidence that detachment hasn't finished its work. Men often underestimate how deeply they attach until it's gone. They don't feel the weight immediately, but once it arrives, it settles in quietly and stays. So when you think he's over you because of how he acts, remember this: acting is not healing. Pretending is not closure. And detachment that's rushed is rarely complete. Absence doesn't bring relief the way people think it does. It brings reflection. At first, a man believes distance will make things easier. He thinks not seeing you, not hearing your voice, not dealing with emotions will lighten the weight. For a short while, it feels like freedom. No pressure, no expectations, no responsibility to explain himself. But relief is surface level and it fades quickly. Once absence settles in, it creates space, and space invites thought. Thought leads to realization, and realization is rarely comfortable. When you're gone, the noise is gone too. There's no distraction strong enough to drown out memory. Absence removes routine, and routine is what hides emotion. When you were there, your presence was woven into his everyday life in ways he didn't consciously notice. The small check-ins, the consistency, the familiarity. Once that disappears, the mind starts replaying moments automatically, not because he wants to suffer, but because the brain is trying to make sense of change. Absence forces comparison. He begins to notice how quiet things feel without you. Not empty in a dramatic way, but unfamiliar. He reaches moments where he expects you to be there and realizes you're not. That's when reflection starts doing its work. Reflection doesn't ask polite questions. It asks honest ones. What did I take for granted? What did I assume would always be there? What did I fail to protect? Those thoughts don't arrive all at once. They come slowly, stacking on top of each other. A man often believes losing someone will stop hurting once time passes, but absence doesn't work on a timeline. It works on awareness. The more space he has, the clearer the picture becomes. He starts recognizing patterns he ignored before, the effort you made, the patience you showed, the support he relied on without acknowledging it. Absence highlights value because value is easiest to see when it's gone. What makes absence powerful is that it removes illusion. When you're present, flaws can be blamed on circumstances, stress, taming, distraction. When you're absent, there's no one else to blame. The truth becomes unavoidable. He can't argue with silence. He can't negotiate with memory. He can't distract himself forever. Absence doesn't chase him. It waits for him to slow down. And when reflection begins, it doesn't always lead to action, but it always leads to awareness. He starts understanding that what he lost wasn't just a person, it was a feeling, a sense of grounding, a version of himself that felt understood. Absence teaches that lesson quietly, without drama, without confrontation. It lets realization grow naturally. That's why absence is often misunderstood. People think distance equals healing, but healing requires processing, and processing requires honesty. Absence doesn't heal him, it exposes him. It shows him what remains unresolved. It reminds him of emotional habits that don't disappear just because someone leaves. So when you think being gone made it easier for him, understand this. Absence doesn't erase attachment, it sharpens it. It brings clarity where comfort once lived. It turns memories into mirrors. And once reflection starts, it doesn't stop just because he wishes it would. Emotional habits don't disappear overnight because they are built slowly through repetition, consistency, and shared experience. When you spend time with someone, you don't just bond emotionally, you train your mind and body to expect their presence. A man may tell himself that the relationship is over, that he's done, that he's moved on, but his emotional system doesn't reset just because a decision was made. Habits live deeper than logic, and breaking them takes more than time. He became used to the way you showed up, the way you listened, the way you reacted, the way your energy balanced his. Those patterns become internalized. They become part of how he regulates stress, comfort, and connection. When you're suddenly gone, the mind searches for what it's used to. That's why certain moments feel heavier than expected, not because he wants to go back, but because his emotional rhythm has been disrupted. Men often confuse moving on with distraction. New routines, new faces, new environments create the illusion of progress. But distraction doesn't replace habit, it only delays the discomfort of losing it. Eventually, the noise fades and the old patterns resurface. He finds himself expecting your response in moments where you used to be present. He mentally reaches for you without realizing it. These are signs of habit, not weakness. Emotional habits are reinforced by memory. The brain doesn't just remember people, it remembers how it felt to be with them. Comfort, safety, validation, stability. Those feelings don't vanish when a relationship ends. They resurface during stress, uncertainty, or quiet moments.